Directors of Avengers Endgame, Anthony and Joe Russo, recently talked a little bit about how they joined in Marvel Studios at the time and place where it was at, and how they specifically evolved characters. The one character they wanted to get more into was specifically the evolution of Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. So this came at us from an interview with Vanity Fair that Joe and Anthony Russo did. And according to them, one of the big things that they wanted to make sure they did in every single entry that they had Tony Stark in was to reflect the character's growth without sacrificing any sort of growth that might have happened outside the films they handled. So obviously, if Tony Stark is mentioned or appears in something like Spider-Man Homecoming, they have to account for that and that character growth and those moments. So they said they really looked at this in terms of how you keep evolving Tony, and that they realized that his story matters so much that you have to acknowledge everything. All the inner demons, everything about himself, the thing he learns about himself, and that you have to account for all these more so than many other characters because he went through so many things that went up and down, like turmoil, right? And you kind of get what he's saying here in terms of what the character did in Civil War, and how that picks up after Iron Man 3 and Age of Ultron, and then where he goes for the Avengers films, and how his sort of persona has grown, his ideals and everything. Now, yeah, all of them obviously had this, but Tony Stark to them wasn't something that they originally signed up for. They signed up for Captain America, and then they were given Tony Stark, so they had to account for it. And they said that it was one of these things where you looked at it and you sat down with everybody, and you have to realize, we're going to keep this momentum for the character because we know the end goal, but we got to make sure we still do hills and valleys and peaks, and he's going to have a low point, then a high point, and everybody around him should acknowledge that. So you kind of get the sense that, starting with Civil War, really, they kind of charted where they were going and knew, okay, once we get to Endgame, probably Tony's going to be sacrificed. So let's build up an entire arc slowly up to that. And it does show because his character arc is genuinely just about perfect.